I'm just waiting for it to connect. It's not. Okay. Looks like it did it.
I reckon.
Hello and welcome to Positive Fandom. I'm your host, Mmmm. And we have back this week Russ Whitfield. How are you this morning or this afternoon, Russ? How are you today?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty good. It's good to be back. Sorry I couldn't make it last week. It was all a bit of a shit show. I don't have a car at the moment because I took my car to the garage and they to get a leaky roof fixed, and they somehow managed to completely screw my car up. So I'm carless, and my friend MJ arrived to stay with me for a couple of months from Canada, and I had to go to Victoria to pick her up, and blah 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 blah. But basically, it was yeah, a bit of a disastrous week, and I knew that I just knew that it wouldn't be the morning or the evening that she arrived. It would be smack bang in the middle of the show, and it turned out that it was. So apologies for that, but no, great to see you. Are happy to be back. Hello to everybody in the chat on this Sunday, the 27th, Oscar Day, I think. So yeah. Oh,
Yes. It is Oscar Day, and there has been a lot of buzz about the Oscars this year. And there are a lot of people who aren't that fond of the Oscars. But before we get into that, I just want to welcome everybody who is in the chat. Of course, good morning to you, Tom Jr. Jackson, my collaborator and faithful mod. Good to see you as
the
always,
legend that is Tom Jr. Jackson.
the legend, and we are all goof people. Tom Jr. Jackson, thank you so much for everything you do. Mikey Lito is here with us this morning, and Mikey Lito has his channel, Mikey Lito Live, guys, on YouTube. So definitely go ahead and check out Mikey Lito
Mm.
on YouTube, and he's starting to do some fantastic streams. Certainly do go and subscribe to his channel. Hey, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already subscribed. Like and subscribe, please, if you like what you're seeing in the content. And of course, there's so much more that's coming down the road,
Are with
guys.
you on camera, how could they fail not to love what they're seeing? That's all I'm gonna say. I'm just sitting here admiring. So I'm sure they are too.
Well, thank you so much, Russ. That is so kind of you. I so appreciate your kind words. And good morning or good afternoon to Mario Lopez. Mario Lopez is out there. Hello, Mario, to
Hi,
you. I hope
Mario.
you are well today. And Renz Tolentino is here with us. Renz, I think he's also from overseas. So
All
good
right,
to see
Renz.
you. I hope you are well. Absolutely. Great to see you. And Mike Alito says, thanks. Mike Alito, thank you for all your help. Definitely over the past year. I so appreciate it. So, yes, everybody, this is Oscar Day, as Russ has mentioned. And certainly last year's Oscars was somewhat of a disaster. And there is no other way to say that. Normally, it's a show that my mother and I dress up for. We have an Oscar party. It's a lot of fun. We make cocktails. We already picked who we think should win, and then we compare it against who actually wins during the night. So, the Oscar party night is a big night for us. We watch the red carpet and everything. So, last year was
Was last
very different. I'm
was it the
sorry.
one where they got the thing wrong at the end? Was that last year or was that a while ago?
It might have, I'm not quite sure, Russ, and I have to apologize. What I can tell you is that last year's Oscars had a much more limited group of people who were there, a limited amount of
Because it was
stars
COVID. Yeah.
because it was, yeah, during the pandemic. And to make things even worse, an actress that I'm very fond of, whose name I can't remember just now, but she's a wonderful actress, starts off the show saying, "We know you don't want to hear us preach to you." And I
Hmm.
thought to myself, "Oh no, don't go there. Don't start talking about, messages and, all that sort of stuff. Just make it a celebration." And it really turned out to be more of a, Hollywood patting themselves on the back and, aren't we fabulous? It was actually maybe one of the most unsympathetic Hollywood demonstrations I've ever seen in my life, at a time when it should have been about the fans. It should have been like, "Hey fans, we know you're out there. Hang in with us. We know you're having a difficult time. I just want to share some moments on the set that were important to me. We know you guys are struggling. I want to make a shout out to people, in such and such place, my hometown. It should have been more about the fans who make all of these things possible, because we're the ones watching it. We're the ones who are, forking out money and, pretty much making their lives fantastic. Instead, it became something that was very misdirected. There was no entertainment. They were just kind of sitting there in their regalia, and it was very, very condescending, and almost almost as if they couldn't even be bothered. So it was such a disappointment for everyone, especially my mother, who said, well, what kind of show is this? I don't understand. Where's the singing and dancing? That you could have pre-recorded stuff.
Mm,
Russ, my mother was very disappointed, and I didn't even know what to tell her. And I was very worried because during this last year, a lot of people, are very despondent. They get depressed when you can't look forward to something that you're looking forward to. It does kind of create a bad feeling. So I had to kind of make up stuff for her and do
shame.
performances for her just to keep
Yeah,
her like in good spirits. It was really not at all what I thought I would be doing that time. And but it does have an effect. The Oscars not only have an effect on the careers of a lot of these actors and actresses, and essentially the studios in promoting their shows, but it
mm,
also has an effect on the fans who want to know more about Hollywood, who are looking forward to seeing all those stars. There's a lot of people who are really interested in seeing these stars and getting a chance to even have just a moment with them that's maybe off the camera, off screen, on the carpet. It does serve a huge purpose, not just promotionally, but also for fans as well. What are your opinion about the Oscars, Russ? Because I know a lot of people have different opinions about it right now. There's a lot of controversial stuff in it. Um, what are your thoughts of it?
I used to love it. I used to love the Oscars. I remember Oscars made me cry once for the first time. I think it was back in the late 80s or early 90s. And I never used to watch the show, but my girlfriend at the time was a big fan of it. And and it was just at that time when in England, when we first started getting cable TV, which you guys have had for thousands of years, and of course we didn't have. And I remember sitting there watching it, and of course they always have that in memoriam bit, and I didn't know at the time. I just used to see in the papers the next day who'd won and who'd not. I had no idea what the show was about. I was fairly young back then, when everything was in black and white. But I remember the in memoriam part, and Lee Van Cleef died that year. And even now, thinking I can still remember how fucking shocked I was. Like just couldn't believe that Lee Van Cleef. Yeah, this was Bob Hout from Escape from New York. This is from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Angel Eyes. This was Angel Eyes. This is Colonel Douglas Mortimer. This was Lee Van Cleef, who shot at the monster in Valley of the Gwangi. I mean, this guy, it's Lee Van Cleef. And I'd grown up with him and watching his movies and stuff. And he was the master in the classic '80s one season long show about ninjas with Shoka Shugi and Timothy Van Patten, which was awesome. Anyway, so I was really shocked and upset, and I remember welling up. I think I was a bit pissed at the time, but whatever. Um, and yeah, for years and years and years, I love watching the Oscars. I think in recent times, I know we touched on this on one of our shows before. I think Ricky Gervais at that Golden Globes really fucking torpedoed. He really torpedoed Hollywood when he turned around and said, look, don't get up here and lecture people. You've got no idea what it's like in the real world. Just save your speeches, take your award, and fuck off. And then he really went to town about oh god, the guy with the island, Epstein, and oh, you had to fly yourselves there because of Jeremy's, and all this sort of thing. And you could see the audience had no clue how to react to this. And I think um, with the advent of social, so there's a few things going on here with the advent of social media, and this is what we were talking about before. But just to reiterate, back in the day, even the 80s and the 90s, and even in the 2000s, in fact, movie stars were movie stars, and they were kind of, you didn't know anything about them really, other than, and if you did find out something about them, it was a huge piece of news, a huge scandal, or something like that. But with the advent and the prevalence of social media, these people are no longer mysterious to us. You know, we kind of know everything about them because that's the nature of the game and how it's played now, right? So they're always tweeting, "Hey, Mark," they're always tweeting and letting us into their lives, and this is what it's like behind the scenes, and et cetera, et cetera. So that mystique has been sort of blown away. And then you've got the I don't know, I want to say hypocrisy. I can't say hypocrisy. Just the whole thing about a bunch of millionaires going on about social causes and telling us how we ought to do things when none of the issues that these people talk about have the remotest effect on anything that they're doing. And I know yeah, Mikey, Mikey don't give a shit. You're not going to watch it, right? um, you know, we talk about a lot of, you see a lot of YouTube channels talking about, you know, woke Hollywood and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, that's one side of it, but you're sort of seeing the fruits of that kind of played out in the Oscars, where now you've got categories and you know, you can't get nominated unless you've got this amount of people from this particular background on your production, which is actually doing other people out of work. So you've got political messaging that they may passion, and I'm sure these people passionately believe in their social causes, and they have every right to, you know, to believe in these causes, you know, but to wag the finger at, you know, the dirty public and tell them that they're not doing enough and we're not doing this and we're not doing that. I think the balloon, the air's gone out of that particular balloon, and I really thought actually that they would have woken up to this, you know, but it seems no, it seems to be as many people have said, you know, it's just a bunch of people sitting in a room smelling their own farts. Because I watched the BAFTAs the other day, and I just wanted to be sick in my mouth. It was awful. It was awful. It was so cringe. And yeah, man, I miss fucking Billy Crystal. You know, come on, what happened to all of that? That was great fun. That was entertainment. That was, yeah, it was real good. It was something to look forward to. You know, I know people would set up, like, you know, especially in the UK, because it's, you know, middle of the night for us. You know, I had a couple of friends, they would make a huge deal about this, set up all night, you know, drinking, partying, watch the Oscars to see what happened. And now I am not so sure that there is that glitz and glamour around it. I'm not sure as many millions of people, well, in fact, I know as many millions of people, they're not tuning in anymore. Um, so you've seen in the Oscars now a sort of a bit of a restructure. We better have a fan favorite and a fan favorite moment. So they've tried to launch that. Will it be successful? I don't know. I don't know. So
Mhm.
I used to love it, and I couldn't care less about it anymore. That's the honest truth. You know, like Mikey, I'll you know, I'll catch it in a rerun. You know, and in the sorry, not in the rerun, in the reports tomorrow. You know.
No, I understand, and I'm sorry. I for some reason my throat was dry, and it still is. You make such a good point, and I do want to welcome Mark O'Brien, and you already did welcome him, Russ. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Mikey Lito. Mikey Lito says he'll spend 5 minutes in the New York Times tomorrow, and then he'll move on. Um, Jedi Bill 797 says, "Good morning, positive fandom." Well, good morning to you.
May the force be with
Hope
you, Jedi Bill.
absolutely. Tom Jr. Jackson says he's excited to see what the host will say. And Mark O'Brien says, "I never really bothered with the Oscars. I'm along the lines of Clarence and True Romance. Hope Dune win a few, but not expecting the main ones." We also have Darth Plato with us. Hello, Darth Plato. How are you today? I hope you are well. So good to see
Arve
you.
Darth Plato.
Absolutely. So glad that you're here today. Um, and Darth Vader says males are an oppressor group. Yeah, there are some very unusual presets and categories and situations that they've set up for this voting. That still is, you know, it's going to take somebody who, it's just an impossible situation to really figure this out. Mary Lopez says, "I still remember how I used to stay up late to see the Oscars. I don't even bother to watch a recording of the ceremony anymore." Well, it's probably because there isn't a recording of the ceremony, especially after last year. Um, Mark O'Brien says Robert Wool presenting them in The Bodyguard. Okay, yeah. Um, and thank you
I'm
all.
ashamed to say I've never seen that. Actually, I think
Oh,
he's talking about the Kevin Costner Whitney movie, right? I
yes.
haven't actually seen that. I hated the song though. It was number one in the UK for 57 years or
Was it
something.
I Will Always Love You?
Yeah, thanks for that. Is that one? It's fucking Kevin Costner actually, because the other one that was number one for 57 years was Everything I Do It for You, and that was from his Robin Hood film. So kind of his movies ruled the charts, for forever back in those days. I got so sick of hearing those tunes, man. Oh my god. Anyway, moving on.
No, it's you make a good point, and I'm glad you shared that. Michaelito says, "Hey, I'm old enough to remember when Robert Leslie Hope was the regular host. The Academy didn't have a troll for a host." Thank you for sharing that, Michaelito. And I think we did have someone say who is going to be hosting today, and I believe it's going to be Amy Schumer, Regina
Uh,
Hall, and I can't remember the third person.
I
So
could already see how this is going to go. Or the whole story of the Oscars is already rolling out before me like some sort of mottled red carpet. If those characters are doing it, I'm pretty sure that we're going to get some messaging. I'm pretty sure we're going to be berated for being horrible people, and it's going to be a celebration of diversity, uh, uh, and everything is going to be sacrificed on that particular altar. Not that diversity in and of itself is a bad thing. I hate that we have to keep qualifying that. Yes, things were not right for many, many years. We understand this. We get this. Things were moving to a stage. Um, Oh man, I was watching a podcast the other day with Gary Nerdrotic. It was this other random podcast, and he said it. Robert My Burnett said it. We all say it. Things were just moving naturally in a more diverse
mhm.
direction, and then all of a sudden, we had just had this explosion of being on the right side of history, and it's not led us to a good place. In my opinion, I'm not allowed to have an opinion because of my sex and the color of my skin and my age, but yeah, I'm not down with it, and I worry now that it's just going to be another lecture fest.
Yes, and I can see the concerns there for sure, and we are going to discuss a little bit more about that. Mikey Lito says the Oscar hosts are Wanda Sykes, Amy Schumer, and Regina Hall. And I know that Amy Schumer was picked because she has a show that's on either Hulu or one of the streaming networks right now for promotional purposes only. Now, I'm not quite sure why Wanda Sykes and Regina Hall were on that list, but only God knows why. Probably. Definitely something that you mentioned already, Russ. And we have Luminara. Luminara 843 is with us this morning. Hello, Luminara 843,
Hello,
and
Luminara.
welcome. It's so great to see you today. Luminara is one of the members out there of our community, our fandom community. She is very active in the 1/6 scale community, and we also see her in other shows as well. So great to see you, Luminara 843. Welcome to you.
Oh,
Um,
Luminara, and we haven't crossed paths before. It's so brilliant to see you. Thank you so much for joining the show. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Um, for me, Russ, when I think about how the Oscars and how stars have kind of tried to go towards different purposes and different things, I always used to think about a lot of them would become like a UN ambassador. I
Hmm.
remember Angelina Jolie became one for many years,
Mm.
and she did that, and that was pretty much like almost like her full time job for a while.
Yes, my goodness, it was. You're quite right. Yeah.
And it was for the children, and it might have, if it wasn't UN, it was UNICEF. And please excuse me, guys. I'm sorry if I'm getting it wrong, but the point is that she did this role, and it was very important to her. She kind of like put Hollywood aside just for a little bit and then decided to focus on this cause. And she didn't go out to people, you sometimes you would see commercials and say these children have needs, but it wasn't anything about you in particular. It was about the children. It was
Mm.
about a cause. It wasn't about you as an individual fan. Absolutely nothing to do with you as an individual fan. It was just, guys, these children are suffering. Why
Mm.
not help out? Let's
Yes.
you can make a difference. But it wasn't you're not making a difference and you should be. It wasn't that kind of a
Excuse me.
response. And the film for me that did that, there was a specific film that I feel started to change that notion in a big way. And the film was called Before the Flood. It was a film by one of my absolute favorite actors out there, Leonardo DiCaprio. Let's say he starred in it. I don't know what his role is, producer, director, or whatever. I think he was great in it. But the film itself became kind of a bit of a hypocrisy because he himself was not living a lifestyle that supported the one he was saying we needed
Yeah.
to adapt. And so, people kept wondering why he did this film when we know that he has private, let's say he's perhaps not living a lifestyle that would have zero carbon outprint, like very few people can do that. And, he was not one of those people that we can even say would be able to do that. Just even for his own personal safety, couldn't do that.
Yeah, no, that's
Um,
right. That's absolutely right. He couldn't. There
no.
is no way. So it's kind of it's six of one and a half dozen of the other. And I think as the lid of the personal lives of these Hollywood stars has been blown off, you know, it's like, yes, Leonardo DiCaprio has a platform, and he feels that with his platform and his multi international fame, that he should promote these good causes. But the flip side of that is you're going to get called out for being a hypocrite, perhaps in the days you never would have in the 80s or the 90s or whatever, because we didn't know that much about it. And people, the knowledge of what these guys did in their private lives, we just weren't as sophisticated back then. We didn't have the tools to really analyze all of this stuff. I remember one along the similar lines. Al Gore did The Inconvenient Truth, and that was not called out and disseminated for many, many years after its release. We were all like, "Oh fuck, have you seen that film? My God, we're gonna, destroy the world." And of course, there was a lot of it that wasn't true, or perhaps should we say, debatable. Whatever side of that fence you sit on, I have no comment to make on that. But we all took it as read until we became more sophisticated and had more Google at our fingertips.
Yeah, and you make a good point with that. And of course, Al Gore has been he's a little bit different in a sense because he's kind of been pressing this issue since, like, let's say the 1970s.
Mm,
He's been doing it a long time. And I think that for him, since he isn't a movie star, and he is a politician, and as a political person he makes it very clear, my stance is the climate.
yeah.
We at least know that as soon as we hear him talk, we know what it's going to be about.
Mm.
um and so, I would almost I personally would give him a pass, because that's his thing. Like, this is his passion. His entire When he wakes up in the morning, he thinks about the environment. I get
No,
that,
sure. My
for
my point being, whatever side of that fence you sit on, it was that movie was kind of taken as read by Joe Public. It's only years later that people now know more about that particular argument. And again, I have no dog in that fight. I'm not a I'm not a climate change denier. I don't know enough, so it's not for me to say. Um, I think was it Mark was saying just now though,
oh,
that
yes.
people are bored of but fed up with the culture wars. I really wish they were. I think people, in inverted commas, are, but it seems to be a war that has been prescribed by many people in power in Hollywood, um, and it's almost like it's gone so far now. It almost can't be reversed. It seems like that if they try to redress the balance now, they then be call out for supporting the people that they sort of castigated. But I wish, yeah, I wish we didn't have to have this guy. In fact, we don't have to have this conversation. It just seems to dominate everything. As soon as you mention something, inevitably someone's bent out of shape, because that's the world that we live in, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Darth Plato says George C. Scott said the Oscars aren't worth anything, and the only worthwhile award was from the New York Screen Guild. And a lot of people actually do value different awards for different reasons, Darth Plato. Thank you for pointing that out. And it certainly is something to think about. I want to welcome LDG of Geeks. Enjoy. Well,
Hello.
welcome to the show. Absolutely. Let's enjoy it. I love that. Geeks enjoy. Yeah, let's enjoy this.
Is that
Um,
like a? Is I don't know that channel. Is that a YouTube channel or a website or?
This is a good question. It sounds like it is a channel, doesn't it? Or some sort of production company.
Hmm.
We so welcome you here this morning. Rogue
Oh,
Thinker,
hello, Rogue. How are you, man?
so good to see you this morning. Hope everything is well this morning, and we hope everything is well with you. So good to see you. We also have Caventino Cavalryman Shay. Hello and good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are on Earth. So glad you're here. And you're saying, surprised Margaret Cho was not included to the roster for Asian representation. Stop Asian hate. I am very surprised myself that she was not asked to do this. Uh, Russ, were you surprised Margaret Cho was not asked to be a co-host?
Um, kind of. I mean, you'd sort of, if not her, then at least somebody that was Asian. So I don't know. Margaret Cho. Yeah, I don't know. I've got no opinion on it. Or it's not something that I've really paid a lot of attention to. I did my due diligence. R makes me read articles before I come on the show, so I'm sort of fully gemmed up with the facts. But I have very little interest in the Oscars. But I did read the articles I was sent to read, so I've done my homework. But I have no strong opinion on who's hosting it. I don't know. I'm
We
one of those. It's like it's not for me. The Oscars are not for me. There you go.
well, to be honest with you, Russ, it used to be so great. Like everybody said, it used to be a great person, like you said with Billy Crystal. Sometimes even what's her name, who's on the television show now? Whoopi Goldberg would be on it.
Mhm.
They had all the coolest people who were on it, and my absolute favorite was the one that you mentioned earlier, whose name I can never seem to remember. That gentleman who called everybody out.
Ricky
Um,
Gervais.
I think they need to bring him back. I think he needs to host it until everybody kind of like wakes up to say, you know what? I think they've kind of checked us. And, we can't kind of like pretend, that we're better than everyone else, more or less.
But
But
that's the thing, Oram. That message just didn't land.
no, it
It
didn't.
just it just didn't land. It's like they're completely tone deaf. They live in this world and they have no idea. They have no, they think they believe that they're doing good. I'm sure that they're not. Although some of them have come out and said that they're doing it to irritate people. Ryan Johnson sort of famously does that, and what's his name, the Star Trek dude, Kurtzman, famously comes out and says, "No, no, I'm doing this to irritate, these, white people that like Star Wars, and they're out of touch and blah 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 blah." But the vast majority of them, no, I think that they generally feel that it's almost their duty to do this stuff. I mean, I remember when COVID started, and in the midst of COVID, and old Gal Gadot, as much as we love her, did that very misguided attempt to cheer everybody up. And I am sure that she wasn't trolling. I'm sure that this was, from our heart. Oh Christ, what can we do? We're kind of famous. We got fans. What should we do here? Um, but it landed like a like a wet balloon. Led Zeppelin, really, didn't it? It was a bit shit. So no, I don't. They're deaf to all of this, and I imagine that Ricky Gervais would never be invited back because I'm sure they just thought that he was an arrogant little twerp that came on there half drunk to insult all of them and didn't realize that he was actually speaking truth to power. And he kept saying, he kept drinking, didn't he? He going, "It's my last year. I don't fucking care. I don't care." And he kept telling, he kept repeating his message, and they, nah, 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 can't hear you.
um, you make a good point. Hello, Mark Mitchell, and we're certainly going to talk a little bit more about this. And I promise you, we won't talk about it for too much longer, Russ, because it must be killing you. Mark Mitchell, good morning to you and
Hey,
welcome.
Mark.
And he says hello to you, Russ, as well.
He said, "I'm
Um,
Dutch now. Rush." Oh, hello, Rush. Yeah.
I think it was just a typo.
I'm just teasing, Mark. I'm just teasing, mate.
Efren Guzman says, good morning. Good morning
Hey,
to
man.
you. So glad to have you here with us this morning. I just want to make sure I'm getting everybody. Bloodsport One is here with us.
The greatest handle on the internet.
Absolutely. Good morning. Good morning, Well, good morning to you, Bloodsport One. So glad to see you here. Awesome One. Awesome One. Cool new channel. Nice name. Thank you so much, Awesome
Hey,
One.
awesome one.
We so appreciate you stopping by this morning. We hope you're having a great day, evening, or afternoon, wherever you are. Um, and I think that's everyone for now. I did want to say that, and happy anniversary to your parents. Early anniversary, Jedi Bill 797 for your 55
Happy
years.
anniversary to them.
So wonderful to hear news like that. I love romance, and I absolutely say I do love to see stories like that. You know, the other thing that I was going to say is there's another gentleman who's in Hollywood who reminds me. He's not exactly like Ricky Gervais, but he reminds me of Ricky Gervais in the sense because initially there used to be he used to do these roast shows and they used to be on cable television, and during the roast show he was also another one who kind of outed Epstein.
Mm.
And during the roast he said, oh yeah, everybody in Hollywood is afraid of Epstein because he's like he wants to have these couch castings with you and take your clothes off and rape you and then terrorize you as an actress. Like he kind of made a comment like this and nobody said anything about it, but it was sort of like Hollywood's biggest secret or one of their secrets, right?
Yeah.
And for the most part, while Seth MacFarlane has had made different comments in the past, it was very bold of him to be able to say something like this. And I would like to see either him or Ricky Gervais get up there and kind of just go ahead and do whatever they want. We just say do whatever you like tonight. Let's see what you can do with this because it needs a rework. It's not going to, you can't just go back to ordinary, business as usual kind of program. That's not going to work anymore. And I kind of think that that's why the Batman movie, Batman, I Am Vengeance, is working so well for people. Because I don't think we could go back to the same types of films that we saw pre-pandemic after everything that's happened. We needed something to kind of revitalize the idea of Batman. And it's fine. Let's say in a few years they go back to what we would normally expect, maybe somewhat a little bit brighter toned Batman as he grows as a character. I just feel like, we need something that's going to shake things up. And if it has to be, we're looking on the darker side of the Oscars, let's look on the darker side of the Oscars.
Sure, I
Um,
think that there were two watershed moments, weren't they? There was obviously the Batman, which was the sort of more adult, dark, grim detective story, and then you had No Way Home, which was a film that didn't seem to have a particular political message. It was just all about bringing back, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, and setting up a Marvel multiverse and all, and it was great fun, and everybody loved it. I'm not, I've said to you so many times, I'm not a huge Marvel fan. I find Marvel movies very, very McDonald's. I go, I love the shit out of them while I'm there, and then they're gone, and I feel that about No Way Home. But it was entertaining, it was bright, and it was just what we needed. And then we got a devastating uppercut. So that was kind of like a jab, and then like the right cross came from the Batman, which yeah, two awesome films, and they'll be, it'll be hard to see them outdone this year. To be honest with you,
yeah. And, someone had made a point about we're getting good movies, but not classics. And for me, I felt like the Batman film, and they were trying to go with this noir feel to it.
Mhm.
That was traditional movie style making where, well, this is going to be a noir film. And so, we're going to try and stick to certain parameters, more from
Mm.
an altruistic style type of movie making.
Yeah,
That's that's why for me, I'm like, 20 years from now, people are going to look at this film and say, wow, they made a film like that in 2021. Like, why would they make that film? Like, what was the inspiration behind making such a dark version? It's going to definitely get attention just even from its construction. And so, I think that was interesting. And of course, we are going to talk about the deleted scene. I promise you, Russ. I will get
Mhm.
off the Oscars soon. I promise you. But it's just that I felt like there were certain things that I needed to say or wanted to discuss and kind of bring out there that are still really relevant, even if you don't watch the Oscars. That was the like you said, the moment that we realized that something was wrong at that moment, because that's the point where we were expecting to see a celebration of things, and last year went so awry. We got that wake up call from Ricky Gervais, and I think it's something that they're going to have to address, because it's not going to just go away. um, the final thing that I was going to say, and Bloodsport, I do appreciate you mentioning about not getting the classics anymore. People are looking for things like this. They want to go to a film, and they do have certain expectations. We just have to be honest about the fact, or at least I am honest about the fact, that I have certain expectations when I walk into a movie theater.
Yeah, I think everybody has the same expectation, and this has been forgotten a little bit as I don't know, as more left leaning, dare I say. And when I say left leaning, I mean like absolute lunatics have gotten control of things. Hollywood has always been a little bit left leaning by and large. Even if you look at something like Star Wars, it's about a plucky bunch of rebels, over defeating fascists, right? Even on that basic level. But what those films did was entertain us. Your job as a writer, actor, producer, director, studio is you're supposed to be entertaining the broadest amount of people possible. And they're not doing that anymore. They are literally coming out and saying this movie is not for you. And they're saying that often to their largest demographic. And I think there has to be some recognition of that. Although it's interesting with the advent of the technocracy taking over the entertainment industry. There's been a lot of talk about Lord of the Rings and Amazon and so on. And the truth of it is that Amazon, if they want to give their messaging in that product that they have made, and it is a product to them, they can take the financial. They don't give a shit. They're worth so much money that I was listening to Andre on the Critical Drink. Andre of Midnight says he was on the Drinkers show the other day, and he's quite right. It doesn't matter to them if they're going to make 5 years of it, 5 seasons of it, and it will continue on regardless. If one man and his dog are watching, it doesn't matter. That is money. It's nothing to them. It's loose change. You're talking billions of dollars, but to a company the size of Amazon, who cares? So the part of me wants it to go back to the old ways. But as I said, these people have a message, and they have the financial clout for these films not to make any money at all, and it really doesn't matter to them. And yeah, and also to go back to try and take a backward step now, I fear would be, well, last week you said this, now you're supporting Nazis. Well, we didn't really mean that they were Nazis, and it just wouldn't fly.
Yeah, and in regards to that comment you made with Andre being on the Critical Drinker and talking about Amazon and the Lord of the Rings, I had always envisioned, or at least looked at it from the point of view of, you know, whether it's a success or not doesn't really matter, because Amazon is so prolific, so pervasive in modern society throughout the globe, that whenever you go onto Amazon to buy something, or you go onto Amazon Prime to watch something, they can advertise the Lord of the Ring show into
Mm.
perpetuity. And nobody on earth has this type of advertising power that Amazon has. You order something from Amazon, and when you get it on your front door, the box has a picture of what they want you to see.
Yeah.
There's no one else on earth who can do this type of reach. Not even Disney has this. Not even Disney, in all the money that they've spent in all the advertising that they've and marketing, does anybody have the type of reach that Amazon has? So even if only one person out of the what 200, 300 million who are subscribed to it,
Mm.
one person per household watches it, just per chance, it turns on, it stays on, they watch it, they don't care. Millions of people will be watching it just out of exposure alone. Oh, what's this? Oh, is it new Lord of the Rings? I'm going to turn it on and watch it. They will watch it. It will be actually a success on the screen just from the number of people who will watch it. Even if they hate it, they're still
Mm.
going to get high numbers. And for them, that's a victory. All they want is to have that exposure. Whether the material is fantastic or not is completely irrelevant to them as far as I can see. And it will be a success because it's just going to be advertised from now, which is practically the end of March, to when it debuts in December.
September. Yeah, September.
Disney
We'll never
wished they
know.
had something like this.
We'll never know. We'll never know. It could be just you watching it, and we'll never know because they'll even if it's an abject failure or the worldly success,
Yes.
they'll just say it's a huge success, and they will never
Yes.
release those numbers, and we will never have a clue. And as we were saying just now, they're going to make the 5 seasons of it, and
Yes.
I think the worst thing for me about that particular show, in some ways it hurts even more than what they did to Star Wars. We've spoken about it being an English myth and all that kind of stuff. Take all that stuff aside. This is a classic literary work, and yes, there's interpretation, and I understand that you can make Oliver set, the Charles Dickens Oliver and set it in New York and have it with African American kids, and you can do all that stuff, and that's a totally legitimate interpretation of that. But here, it's not that, and that's it. That's it. This is what I'm trying to articulate. It's about the message. This adaptation does not feel genuine. It doesn't feel genuine. It feels like it's been done to promote a message. That's what it feels like. That's what it looks like from the trailers. That's what it looks like with the interpretation of these characters, and it feels disingenuous. And kids are probably going to watch it, and they're probably going to love it, and they're going to grow up having this warped impression of a classic literary work that is held dear, much more dear than to me. I love Lord of the Rings, and I loved it for my whole. But I'm not a scholar of it. And there are some people, it's like the Bible to some people, and it feels like
Yes.
it's just been like the Ring itself. Essentially, it's been corrupted, and it's been corrupted for no good reason. I am very sure that people of color couldn't give a shit if the elves were white or black or whatever. They just want to watch a good. Millions of people turned out to watch Lord of the Rings, the Peter Jackson thing. We can talk about that. I don't imagine that there were Asian families leaving the theater going, well, that was great. But there should have been more Asian people in it, and black families leaving, going, "Oh my goodness!" Well, middle hashtag Middle Earth too. Well, it just doesn't happen. It's not real, and I don't know why
Yes.
we've got these crusaders telling us that it's a thing, and well, anyway,
Well,
enough
I
for
can
us.
I can respond to that. I have a
Mm,
response for that.
yes, you
And
can.
the fact of the matter is, um, there needs to be more support for productions that focus on other ethnicities, races, genders. But that should not disrupt stuff that's already in place. No one should feel guilty because their story doesn't include enough variety in it. Go ahead and be an artist. For those artists out there, go ahead, be an artist, write your stories, make your work, but you shouldn't feel guilty just because somebody's telling you that you need to add more of one thing or another. It's your decision as an artist, and it's your decision as to whether or not you're going to keep certain groups in your story or not. nobody else has the right to tell you that because you don't have that in there, there's something wrong with your work.
I
So I
agree.
stand by that 100%, regardless of what the story is about, regardless of what time period it's set in. Um, and I think that, that's going to, a lot of that was kind of being pushed or lost. I think that, hopefully if Amazon wants to stay and do whatever they want to because they own this stuff, that's their business. But, I'm hoping that we don't see that going forward. Um, and I do want to mention Mikey Lito talking about, some of you were talking about, you don't know who's nominated. I know Bloodsport won. There's been a lot of very interesting things that have been happening this year because The Power of the Dog, which was directed by Jane Campion,
Mm,
has kind of lost, or feels like it kind of lost a bit of its favoritism for a number of reasons. And just briefly, Campion made some derogatory remarks about the Williams sisters, who are, in my opinion, the greatest tennis players of all time. Let's say in the modern age. She insulted them during a ceremony where the Williams sisters were present, and she insulted them in order to kind of like boost her own accomplishments over the Williams sisters. And so, she apologized. Campion apologized, in public about it, but it was absolutely disgraceful what she said. And, she has been called out about it. And the movie that right now is being nominated, which was in competition with King Richard, which is the story about the Williams sisters' life story,
mm.
um, is directly up against some of the same categories as Power of the Dog, which was Jane Campion's story. And the worst part about Power of the Dog was not necessarily, and Michaelita, while I agree with you about drudgery in a motion picture, the worst part about Power of the Dog was not that people overall do not care for this story. That has nothing to do with it. The worst part for me is that they wouldn't let the movie stand alone. If it was going to be a sad movie like The Deer Hunter or one of those sad stories, let it stand alone and let the story tell its own self. But if you
Mm,
have to write a 10-page article explaining to me why I think this, why this should be the greatest film ever, then I don't even want to see this film anymore. You've ruined it for me. Let me
mm.
watch the film and make my own interpretation of a film that talks about a serious subject, which is actually very, very good. Instead, you've ruined it with all these interjections and explanations. I can't even look at this film without thinking about how people, like one actor saying that, men don't listen. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I don't need to hear those comments. Let me just watch this film and understand what it's about. If it's a sad film, then it's a sad film. But this entire unusual and somewhat dishonest promotion of a film to represent something in one way, which it does not. It does not represent what they were saying. It's completely about another topic altogether. I think they did, kind of like did it very badly in a sense, and kind of the promotion of it, the marketing of it, actually ruined the film. And it might have actually continued to be something that was in the forefront, very important artistically speaking. It kind of has an artistic flair to it, but now that's all ruined. Russ,
Mm.
it's all gone. There is
It's
no
about the
power of the
story
dog
around
anymore.
it's about the story around the film now, right? It's it's blown out. The question is though, and I guess chat as well. Do you think that what Campion said will affect its chances? Because it was
Yes.
kind of nailed on. It was nailed on. You'd be putting
Mhm.
your oh, is he Tom? You see Tom Junior Jackson's comment there. I can imagine. Yeah, I wonder now if it becomes, hey Latoya, if it
Hi,
becomes
Latoya T. Good morning to you. Such a pleasure to see you here today.
such a controversy that events outside of the art itself are gonna now it's gonna torpedo that. Wow, I don't know, man.
Yes.
That's kind of like that's kind of reached a new level of the veil been pulled off. Like if the director says something out of order, now that's torpedoed the chance of her winning best director, the best film winning. I think that the oh come on RM, I've forgotten it again. I know I mentioned this backstage. The one I think is going to win,
Oh,
um,
Coda. Is it
Coda.
Coda?
Yeah, I think Coda will nick it, and I've thought that outside of this simply because it's a heartwarming feel good movie.
Well,
But yeah.
And you know something? Guess what? During pandemics, people want heartwarming, feel good films. They want to feel good. That Batman film, that really, I know it was a noir film, but it made me feel really good. I didn't feel sad at the end of the film. You know,
No.
I this is something that is very interesting. We certainly have seen some sad films. There's a film about a beautiful Italian family who lose their parents. It's a beautiful film. It's absolutely stunningly beautiful and based on a true story. And it's very sad. It's a sad film. But, you know, we all know very well and have respect for films that have a sad nature to them.
Mm.
But during a time that we're all going through, sometimes you need something to uplift you. That's why Spider Man, that's why Spider Man, in my opinion, has crossed the 1 billion mark and will probably make maybe 3 billion by the end of this year. For
Yeah.
me, because people like the idea of someone coming back and giving someone a second chance and trying to make things right and trying to make things right for people he cares about, because that's what we're all trying to do to get through all this craziness. It was more than just the Spider-Man, the 3 Spider-Men showing up. It was more than that. The feeling that we got from watching it, even the families that went to go see Spider-Man got this feeling like, this feels really good to see this. I feel great after seeing this.
Yeah.
That makes a huge difference in the box office and how people perceive films. Even whether it's a perfect film or not, it doesn't matter. During a time like this, people are going to focus on that. And Coda was one of those films. It wasn't my favorite film by a long shot, but it
Hmm.
certainly was a feel good film, and no one can deny that. And while Power of the Dog was somewhat, you know, of a sad film, it had a sad undertone to it, and not in necessarily a good way. When I say in a good way, where Batman having the noir tone to it, a sad, you know, tone to it, but a happy ending. Power of the Dog was not like that. So, you know, unless you're ready to go into a film, which I still consider very artsy, Jane Campion's movies tend to be kind of that way. Um, you know, you're going to be very disappointed if you think it's going to be all hearts and flowers. And I hope I'm not being too long-winded, but
No,
honestly,
no.
you know, it's something to think about. And you know, I can't get away from the idea of of just how ironic it would be that Coda wins, just because it brings people so much happiness and joy at a time when they desperately needed it. And that was also my argument for why in the Oscars last year they really needed to bring some happiness and joy to ordinary people. They actually did it a few years ago, and I think it was when Wonder Woman had come out,
Mm.
and or it might have been right before Wonder Woman, and they had people who were attending the Oscars in another room, ordinary people, and some of the stars, including Gadot, went over to the area where, you know, just ordinary people were watching it, and they went and met people in the crowd, and it was like the most incredible thing ever. You know, this is the type of excitement that we're looking for from Hollywood. We don't necessarily need them to become our best friends, but we need to know that they value us as fans, because, you know, this is where we're finding entertainment for. These are the type of things that we're looking to make us happy, for sure. That's why we keep coming back to see these stories. So I think that that approach would have been interesting to have done, although they couldn't because of COVID, but something that focused more on how important this was to those of us who are just watching this stuff every day of our lives.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Talking to Wonder Woman, did you see the? I think it's the writer of Moon Knight, the new Marvel thing that's coming on. Had a right go at Wonder Woman 1984 for not representing Egypt correctly. I don't know where you sit on that. I'd be interested to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, this is something that is very interesting because
Sorry, should we give the? I don't know if the chat know about. I've heard about that. Do you want to give a bit of? Because I did my homework, you see, so I know about this.
no,
But
no, 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 no. And I do want to say hello to Paul in Long Beach. Hello,
hey, Paul.
Paul in Long Beach. It's always so good to see you. And thank you for the corrections. Weinstein versus Epstein, both horrible human beings. We so appreciate the distinction. We do want to get that clear, guys. Weinstein is the Hollywood producer. Epstein is the convicted child molester and
Yeah, he was the one that
guy.
Gervais mentioned, though.
exactly.
But Weinstein
Um,
was the genesis of Me Too.
yes,
Uh,
and Weinstein was the one who, the guy from the Orville, gosh, what is his name?
Seth.
Seth MacFarlane mentioned.
Mm,
So I do want to mention that to you, Paul, as well. So we mentioned both of these persons
mm.
in the story for sure, both equally offensive going forward. But thank you for the distinction, just so everybody's clear. Gremlington, hello to you.
Hey, Gremlington. I don't think I know you, but hello, man. Good to see. I love the profile picture, by the way. Literally,
It is fantastic. And he's wearing like, is that like a scrubs? You know, like with a stethoscope? Is he a doctor?
I have
Gremlington.
no idea. I can just see a gremlin. You know. So-
Well, we do love it. And hello, Gary Bonjonsovich Worthington. So good to see you. If I haven't said hello to you already, I just want to make sure. Entertain, not drain my soul.
yeah,
What powerful words.
banjo sandwich.
Absolutely. Mary Lopez says, I can't even imagine the audience the Oscars would have if Gervais hosted the ceremony. I say make it a surprise. Hello, everybody. I'm back this year. I mean, they
Brace
would
yourselves.
have, that's right. Put your drinks down.
Mm.
They would have some of the highest ratings. It actually gets me excited even thinking about it. Okay. Whew.
You know, we were
Stubble,
saying about Wonder Woman, weren't we?
yes, and I'm sorry. I just want to say hello to Stubble McShave as well. Um, Hello, Stubble. It's such a pleasure to see you this morning. There are very few mythic characters created in modern movies, since so much is created from existing IPs. Tarantino is one of the few who create original mythic characters. Well, thank you for pointing that out to us. And I think that's everybody who is on. And
Hey,
the
Stubble.
Outcast Creative, and I'm so
Oh,
sorry,
hey
Russ.
guys.
We're so sorry to hear you have COVID. I sure hope you feel better. And yes, the Oscars do feel less prevalent these days. A lot of people are saying that.
Mm. Feel
As you
better,
have
mate.
said. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, sorry, our
Yeah.
Outcast Creative. By the way, Options in Kingston is now called Prism. I made a point of looking at it last time I went past it. So yes, it's still there, but is now called Prism. And Gary Barlow played there a secret gig recently. For those that are not interested in the chat, I'm very sorry. It's a small local issue that we were discussing last week. Pray continue, our room. I'm so sorry.
No,
Hey,
no.
Keely,
No, absolutely. This is a free forum style.
is it a safe
Really
space,
chat.
RM? Is it a
Oh,
safe
yes.
space?
It is. It is a safe space, which means, guys, if you have differing views, we welcome those. Certainly there, we're not going to be saying anybody is right or wrong here. We are welcoming different views, and that's why you're going to hear us
Yeah,
read views that are different from ours. A lot of times, a lot of you are talking about Lord of the Rings as well. And so we do appreciate your comments because it adds to the conversation for sure. Six Scale Cantina. Hello, Six Scale Cantina. And hello to you, Aries, Tarrington. Guys, Six Scale
Russ,
Cantina.
baby, I like it. 6 Hour Cantina. Yes.
Yes,
Hey,
absolutely. And are we going to go and subscribe to the Six Scale Cantina? Is it possible that we may go and subscribe to Six Scale Cantina? And I say yes.
I believe so.
Yes. So he says, great discussion in the morning. RMN Russ baby listening to while working. So glad to hear that with you this morning.
It's interesting,
And
6 Scale Cantina. That was one of the things that Aram and I discussed when she came up with the idea of this, podcast or live stream, whatever you want to call it. No one's doing a lot at this time. A lot of parents are taking their kids to soccer and doing what have you, and so we're glad to be here. Although it's an ungodly hour for our room to be up and about, drinking Bucks Fizz by the look of it. So she's probably half drunk already, dare I say? But I'm just gonna throw that out there. So yeah, we're glad to be here to entertain you while you work. It was one of the reasons that we started doing this. To be honest with you.
Yes, and we so appreciate you and you being here. Mikey Lito says, just to be clear, there's nothing they could have done to make Power of the Dog interesting to me. I called it drudgery because it was a chore to watch. Well, thank you, Mikey Lito. And I assure you, many people share your opinion. As Russ has stated, people actually dislike the film so much that they are turning, just turning away from it and looking at Coda, which is so inspirational to so many people. Tom Jr. Jackson mentions The Deer Hunter is a good film to teach kids about peer pressure. And it was very controversial when it came out. It was not a happy film, but they didn't have to kind of bolster it up. They didn't feel the need to do that. It spoke for itself. And it's a
Mm.
classic. And I remember my father and brother watching that film. Like whenever it came on TV, The Deer Hunter came on, I was not allowed to watch the film. Although they did take me to see The Exterminator, I was not allowed to watch The Deer Hunter at home. So like,
That's kind of weird, RM. I'm going to have to say, having seen both of those movies, that's kind of weird. But you see, I wonder, and we will get back onto Wonder Woman 1984 in Egypt, I
yes,
guess.
we are going
Would
to.
would they be allowed to even make the Deer Hunter today with its depiction of the enemy? The enemy of those soldiers. Would it, or would that depiction be labeled as not fair and not right, despite the fact that Vietnam veterans will come back and tell you exactly what they thought of the conduct of their enemy in that particular conflict? I don't think you'd be allowed to do it.
Yeah, and it's a shame that we wouldn't be able to see something that really was so had such an impact on, let's say culturally across nations.
Mm.
And it's sort of a sign of the times of what was happening in the world. Six Scales Cantina says nothing against sad films or sad songs, but can't deal with it right now. Not the vibe I'm looking for to spend my free time. And I think a lot of people are sharing that
We'll
feeling.
always have Grease and Saturday Night Fever, Six Girl Cantina, but especially Grease, because Grease is a feel-good film. It's got singing, it's got dancing, and it's got Travolta. What more could anybody ask?
Absolutely. And Bloodsport says morning Aries. Yes, yes, yes. Just a Brown Girl Network. Good morning to you, Just a
Hello.
Brown Girl. So glad to
I
have
was
you
just wanted to
here.
say, sorry, RM, just a brown girl. I understand from having watched Robert Meyer Burnett's Burnett Work show that you are a filmmaker. If
Mhm.
you have anything that you would like to promote, please promote the shit out of it in the chat, and we shall all go and follow it. Stick up your IMDb, stick up some links to your stuff.
Mhm.
Independent film is what's keeping the film industry alive. It's what's keeping it interesting. I think from art pieces to action pieces, the stuff I love, your Scott Adkins, your Michael Joe White, it's people like you that give fans like me and the guys and girls in the chat something to look forward to. So thank you, and please support Just a Brown Girl
Yes, and I'm going to make Just a Brown Girl an example of what I was talking about, and I
and the
think
Outcast
maybe
Creative.
yes, and Outcast Creative, and a little bit of what, perhaps what you were alluding to, Russ, is that I still feel personally that Hollywood is not supporting minority creators. I just don't believe that they are. And this is what happens, is that they've gotten away with this sort of attitude for so long. Just throw a ton of money towards these creators. We need to hear other voices, but we don't need Hollywood pretending that they support creators like this by changing existing IPs or placing piecemeal. Let's play something in here like a black elf. That's what I look at the black elf
Mm,
as
mm.
personally. We know that
Tokenism.
it's yes, and so as far as I'm concerned, it was something that didn't need to be done. They could have still made a fantastic story or create a new character that is actually valid. Um, Go ahead and have some sort of creativity, but we didn't necessarily need to see something like that because we know that it was unauthentic. It certainly wasn't something that somebody did out of love or the work of their life. Certainly not anything. It's a story, a magnum opus that's inspired by the country, and that country does not have a history of that.
No,
So
it
let's
doesn't.
not
I
go
think
ahead.
Sorry, just as we said so many times, if you there, nobody has anything against a diverse fantasy show. Nobody has anything against that. It's just that that one is seen as a sacred text. And if you want to make something that has people of color being elves and dwarves and things like that, brilliant. Make your own. All
Yeah,
the
and they're
fantasy fans
probably
around the world would watch it. Look how Game of Thrones, as multicultural as that was embraced before it went shit.
Mhm,
But it was a thing. It was a huge deal, and nobody said, "Well, I'm not watching that because those Unsullied people aren't, white." Nobody said that. Like
mhm.
nobody said that.
And
People just loved it.
there are so many stories to be told. Children of Blood and Bone, which is one of the
Mhm.
stories. Anything with African folk tales or African American folk tales, and not even from Africa, other nationalities and cultures that we haven't even seen productions on. We're really lacking in that, but Hollywood needs to throw money at this. And when creatives come up and want to make stories like this, and we're not seeing those stories made, that's when Hollywood kind of falls short, in my opinion.
Oh, I must say something. Actually, you reminded me years ago when you were talking about Hollywood not supporting independent filmmakers of color and things like that. Um, I remember when Jada Pinkett Smith was bent out of shape because Will Smith didn't win Best Oscar, because his performance wasn't as good as the guy who did win it, and she made it all about race. And I know I'm not friends with. I know I have some dealing with a director called Roger Ellis, a African American guy, and it was at the time the hashtag, Oscars so white and all that sort of thing. And funny enough, Ellis went on social media and did a very similar thing to what you just said. It's like, no, this is bollocks. She is bent out of shape because her husband didn't win. It's got nothing to do with race. The other guy was better. And the fact of the matter is, as a black independent filmmaker, Will and Jada Smith wouldn't piss on me if I was on fire. They have no idea what I'm doing. They don't support us. They don't care. They live in that bubble, and it's just she's bent out of shape. But she's jumped on that particular bandwagon because she knows it's going to gain traction, and gain traction. It did. So yeah, I think you are 100% right on that. Not that I can speak from experience. I'm just reporting what I saw and read.
Yes. And so, with that being said, my comments about what you were talking about, in regards to how Egypt was portrayed in Wonder Woman, and this is something that's very interesting. I think that we're going to see a lot of films that will try to create a historical context for certain countries. And I have to ask myself this question, Russ. If the film is not a historical film, because Wonder Woman is not a historical film, it is not. It's a fantasy film.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman is a superhero, but she does not exist, in real life. So it's not a historical event that we're talking about.
Hmm.
It might be something that was inspired by a historical event. But in actuality, you probably shouldn't be learning your history necessarily from a superhero film. Let's just say
No.
that there are themes in the film that reiterate those in real life. But I think that if what they were trying to say is that we didn't like the depiction of Egypt, and it's perhaps it's a culture in the film, I think that there can be a valid argument for that. But is it meant in a historical context, or you just didn't like how people were shown in the film? It,
I think it was just he's bent out of shape at the depiction of Egypt, and whilst on the one hand I can say, yeah, that's not an accurate representation of Egypt. My stepdad's actually Egyptian, so
Mhm.
bit of a connection there. But I don't know, it just seems to be very ill-timed, a little bit mean-spirited, and why the fuck are you saying that? What you're talking about a film that came out, what, 2, 3 years ago now? Why attack Wonder Woman 1984? In particular. I mean, look, Outcast Creative uh, is English like me, right? We're the perennial fucking bad guys, and we have been, for years. We don't get bent out of shape about it. You saw the Braveheart or the Patriot, where it's got British soldiers setting fire to churches and stuff like that. We didn't do shit like that, but that's what people came away from that with. And at no point did we go, well, it's just stuff that happens. I think, yeah, I understand his point. I do understand his point, and it has been misrepresented, but it just seems very bizarre. Like you're on the cusp of of greatness with probably one of the best actors working in Hollywood today. That fucking Oscar. I mean, I know he wasn't well served in Star Wars, but that dude is Oscar Isaac is an actor of note. And I'm not a Marvel fan or anything like that, but I want to watch that show because of him. Like he is a movie star to me, and a brilliant actor. I want to watch it. The only thing I would say about Wonder Woman 1984, in its defense, and I am a bit of a defender of Wonder Woman 1984 because to
Ooh,
me
you're a
a lot of
defender.
yes, uh, I think maybe I'm wrong, and I probably am. I just think a lot of people seem to miss the point of that film. It's sent to me to be a film that was made as though it was made in the 1980s. So it has that sort of screwed up logic of an 80s movie that doesn't really make any sense. And if you can imagine Wonder Woman with bigger hair, and I'm trying to think who would be the sort of, if it was Ed Harris as the baddie or something like that, what was his name, Michael Ironside as the baddie or whatever. And you say it just that seemed to be what the film was. It's like this is Wonder Woman 1984 shot with all those lurid garish colors. Even used the bloody shopping mall that was in Commando. It seemed to me to be saying this is a film as it was made in the 80s. And with that depiction of the world as it was, that's how every film was in the 80s when they were in the Middle East. I've seen Chuck Norris driving down that road more times than I can count. It just that would be my defense of it. But yeah, missed times for me, but fair at the same time. I just wonder why he would have come out and done it.
Well, something, this also has to do with what we are also seeing, where we're not allowed to use words, specific words, like to say the word slavery or that slaves even existed. And they want to use kinder, gentler depictions of things. But historically, we already know that it was a terrible thing, and you can't kind of show a kinder, gentler version of an event that was so, catastrophic and affected so many lives so, deleteriously.
Mm.
So, this is something to think about. And there are going to be depictions of that. And I think that there is a huge, just in general in the United States, a lot of people don't know anything about the history of anybody or anything in the Middle East. There's a lot of unknowns. And I'm not saying that they're ignorant or anything like that. I'm just saying that it's just not something that is even studied well in the United States in the regular curriculum. It just, world history is not one of the strongest points. So, however, in regards to this film, I think you make a good point. We're not going to see depictions that are always ideal. We're not going to.
No,
And, the expectation of showing something that is 100% historically accurate, it's just not,
well,
possible to even do
it's
this.
just a stupid film to level that accusation at. Like I hated the way it was depicted in Wonder Woman 1984, which has been slagged off as a really bad film anyway by pretty much. I mean, there are much more salient examples of the Middle East and depictions of the Middle East that you could really call out and say, look, this is bang out of order. And we would, but Wonder Woman 1984. That's a bit like I don't know. I hate the way the Dark Knight trilogy depicted Chicago and made out my city to be like some sort of urban hellhole. And it's kind of me you getting upset about that or whatever. It's like or you getting bent out of shape. That bloody John Carpenter in Escape from New York. How dare he? What the
It
hell,
was
man?
quite accurate.
Yeah, yeah.
For cruising, very, very accurate. There was no
It's
misrepresentations
funny
there.
you say that. I was watching an interview with him the other day, actually, and he actually said that, what's the biggest shithole we could find? Oh my God, Lewis had a fire. We'll use that.
I asked my mother about cruising just briefly. I'd said, was it true? Like, were people was it like pretty much that whole section of New York? And she said, yes. She was like, you couldn't go down there because the streets were just packed. And I said, wow, I had no idea. I still am very fascinated by that time. And I think that the films that were made about that era are amazing. Mario Lopez says Hollywood has also represented the Portuguese people in one or another film in a way that is not true. But I don't think this was ever done with malice. Well, thank you, Mario Lopez, for sharing
Nice one,
that.
Maria. Thank you.
And Paul from Long Beach says, well, according to Hawkeye, there's no police presence in Rock Center. Now that's offensive.
There's no police presence in the valley either, where Cobra Kai takes place. But who cares?
Uh-huh. And that is very interesting to think about. Let's see. Mikey Lito says that in Wonder Woman 1984 they got the mall right. That's for sure.
Mhm.
Having grown up, going to malls, especially in that time period, I have to 100% agree with that, Mikey Lito. And so, what I was going to say is, yes, there was a very interesting article. We're not going to talk about the Oscars anymore because I made you talk about it for so long, Russ. But the article, if you guys want to check it out, has to do with using math to predict who's going to win, and I have a feeling that that's not going to do it at all. I think that essentially we're going to get a lot of surprises at this particular Oscar award ceremony. But I do absolutely, and I don't know how I've held out this long, Russ,
Mhm.
to talk about the Batman deleted Joker scene,
Oh, holy
which
shit!
has just gotten, it's kind of taken over, I know, YouTube and the internet by storm. And it certainly is something that, first of all, I I can't even say enough about this Batman film. And
Mhm.
and I totally respect people who it was not the film for them. I get that. But for me, as I said, the film was quite satisfying to me. A lot of fun to watch. It had that dark noir feel. I really enjoyed it so much. This Joker scene, I wasn't expecting this, Russ. Where did it come from and why? What are your thoughts on it?
I thought it was outstanding. I loved it. I loved Keanu's depiction of the Joker. You got to say now, him and Jared Leto had tough acts to follow. They both did different takes on the character. This depiction of the Joker seems like it will totally fit in this universe. I love that that this has already happened. It's not like like in Batman Begins, like he has the card. I'll look into it. That's the beginning of the Joker. The Joker's already been and gone, and he's already been caught, and he's already in jail. And I love the whole, you can see the influences in the Batman, right? You've got Zodiac, you've got Seven, and now, which we didn't know, Silence of the Lambs, right? That's your Silence of the Lambs scene in there. Um, I'm glad it wasn't in the film. I think, having read the comments by the director himself, it was a wise cut. It was a very wise cut to make. I think it would have been too much in that movie.
Yeah.
It would have detracted from the later scene with Paul Dano. When Bruce Wayne, that particular scene, it would have detracted from it. But man, a an extra, yeah, just a nice little extra, for the fans, if you like, it was outstanding, and I just love the look of him. And I forget which comic I read this, and I can't remember. It was taken from a certain comic. I can't remember if it's the Batman that laughs, or I can't remember now. But this sort of like really physically damaged guy, who's doing everything he can to get inside Batman's head, and Batman trying to resist it, but Batman having to put himself. It's very Clarice and Dr. Lecter scene. Yeah, another 10 out of 10 from the Batman. It continues to be awesome. Bloody hell, it's going to be a tough act to follow. I mean, um, one of the things Matt Reeves did say is, though, yeah, Joker exists in this universe, but I don't necessarily know that I'm gonna use him, and I wonder if that is not a right decision, given Heath Ledger, given now Jared Leto, or Leto, whichever you prefer. Have we seen enough Joker? Is there scope now to give us more different? Give me the same but different. I'm not sure I want to see this Joker go up against Batman. I kind of want to see what else is going on in Gotham, and how they can um, adapt some of the other villains to make them as scary as the Riddler. Because the Riddler, they did such a good job of making what is essentially a bit of a silly character into an absolute scary psychopath.
Yeah, it didn't feel like I'm not even quite sure. This felt like a serious drama. It felt like a serious drama. It wasn't I don't even know how to describe this. It felt like a legitimate drama. And
Mm,
I was actually taken aback by how between the camera angles when the Batman is looking through the over like through the glass, and then we see
mm.
the back of the Joker and it says Arkham Penitentiary or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And then we don't see the Joker's full face at first. We don't see that. We don't really even get a sense of that. It's his voice and his intelligence that we hear. The
Mm,
His voice and his intelligence and what he's saying. He's not even contrived. This is just him naturally, and he is incredibly intelligent, incredibly frank, and not he's not trying to impress anybody. It's just like the pureness of this person who could have been like, somebody who changed the world in a good way, but went down a different path, right?
right.
He could have been somebody who could have changed, brought, medicine to people who needed it, or made peace in the world, but he went down a different path, and this is what he's turned into. And now the reflection of his face is almost a reflection of, let's say, the horrors that he's been through and the horrors that he's seen, and the symbolism of that, and waiting to expose that. Because if you couldn't see him, you wouldn't have imagined. Let's say you didn't know it was the Joker and you just are reading it, there's no character one, character two, and you were reading this cold, you're like, oh, this is a very interesting story.
Mm.
To apply it to the Batman and to Joker, it's just absolutely a much higher level of conversation and interaction, and perhaps maybe even a more realistic rendition of what it's like for a criminal who's talking to somebody who's trying to interrogate him.
Yeah,
I don't think criminals have smart, snarky remarks every 5 minutes. Like, I think that that's a fantasy. We want to charm you. We want to make you think that this person is the most amusing person ever, and can just kind of like read you. And I'm like, maybe it's not like that. Maybe it's more like this interaction that we saw here. And he's like, well, do you have anything to show me? Like, what am I going to go on? Like, what's up? And he has to show him the thing. And if he were interrogating him in the same room, which he
mm,
can't do because he's too dangerous, right? He can't
yeah,
go in the cell. He's too dangerous to even be in the same cell with this guy. If he were showing him his picture, do you recognize this person? Do you recognize that person? The investigation can't even go in that route because he's so many steps ahead of everybody else. He's probably planned all this stuff out himself. It was just so incredible for such a short scene, Russ, for such a short scene to captivate you in that way. I'm just blown away by it. I was not expecting to like it that much. I was scared of the Joker. I'm scared of this guy,
yeah,
but and seeing Bruce Wayne like just keep his composure in what must be like almost kind of a terrifying way to go up to essentially is a monster and have to get answers from him. It was just so compelling, Russ. This is but it could not be in that film. It would have changed the entire feel of the film, but I could see it in the next film, or perhaps referred to in the next film as a
yeah.
flashback
Or
or something.
maybe there'll be some stuff in the Gotham TV show if they go ahead and make that. I don't know if they are making it or not. Somebody in the chat will probably know more than me. Yeah, I think
Whew.
what Matt Reeves got right and what a lot of them are getting right now is that we don't need an origin story. We don't need to see how Batman and the Joker, became enemies. We don't need to see, Martha and Thomas getting shot again. That's been commented on a lot, and that scene lands even more so with us because we the audience know the history, so we know who this guy is. We know who the Batman, and that gives it so much more weight. So, as you said, if you're just reading it with character one and two, it's still pretty compelling writing, but with the weight of 80 odd years of history behind these two characters, multiple movies dealing with these characters, their impact on pop culture, fucking everybody knows who they are, so that's what made it land even better. And we kind of, we know what the Joker's like. Even if you're a casual movie goer, you know what Heath Ledger's like. You've probably seen Jared Leto, you certainly saw Jack Nicholson, so you know this character. And for this Barry Keoghan to deliver such and unique performance, a unique take. Obviously directed by Matt Reeves and whoever wrote the the screenplay. I was rewrote the screenplay as well. Um, yeah, his take was legit, man. It was awesome, and I'd like to see more of it. I don't, but on the other hand, maybe this was enough. I'm very keen, as I say, for the next Batman movie with Pattinson in it to deal with other things.
Yes, absolutely. And welcome to you, Henning Althers. He says, "Damn, I'm 12 minutes behind. The Exterminator, a classic New York movie. We're glad to have you here, Henning Althers.
We're big
We
fans of
know
the Exterminator in Positive Fandom.
absolutely. I love that film, and I think Russ, you and I are definitely going to have to do a definitely a decent review of The Exterminator one
Mm.
of these days for sure, because we are such fans of it. Um, and yeah, that. So, guys, when you get a chance, go ahead and check out that scene. Which even I don't know how many. What is it? 2 minutes? 3 minutes?
Yeah, 2 or 3 minutes, something like that.
It's
Maybe
absolutely
a bit longer.
compelling. Yeah, I mean, it was I can't even okay, Mario Lopez says he did not like the Joker scene. Okay, all right. We respect that. We respect that.
Cool.
I I
Block it in
loved
the
it,
chat,
Mario.
Mario. Why? Why not? I'd be interested to read that because it seems like everybody, pretty much every man and his dog did. So I'd be interested to know the negative. But yeah, Tom Junior Jackson's correct. Yeah, 100%. That's why it was cut. You know, it would not have worked in that film. You can see why it got cut, but at the same time, I'm I'm glad it was made, and I'm glad that he was smart enough to release it to say, this is something else that could have gone on but didn't, and I cut it for these reasons, the right reasons.
And Bloodsport One says the Riddler was a real person. Reminds me of some people I know. Kind of scary personality wise. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
he was. And you know, and that's a good point. You make Bloodsport One. Um, Outcast Creative says one of Barry Keegan's first roles was a young IRA in 71. Great movie. He's no dialogue, but in every scene he is in, you cannot take your eyes off him. We're retro reviewing it last night. Now, if I'm correct about 71, Russ, was it that movie about where they were holding these gentlemen as prisoners and they were getting like no food, no water, or is
No,
that a
no,
different?
that's about the Maze prison. 71 is set in Northern Ireland in 1971 at the height of the Troubles and the year I was born. And it's about a British soldier that gets separated from his unit, and he has to try and basically make it through a city full of people who desperately want to kill him. And that
Mhm.
is kind of a simplification of it. Interestingly enough, my mate Steve was in Northern Ireland in the 80s, and he said it was kind of chilling to watch that
Oh
movie. It brought a
dear.
lot of memories. This was set years before he was there, but the ground hadn't changed that much. They were still using. Think what got to Steve was seeing the SLRs again, the rifles that the British Army used to have back in those days. Yeah, so it's a great film. It's a great film and very well acted. And I've forgotten the name of the lead.
I think I've
Um,
seen it advertised on some of the streaming services,
yeah, I think it's on
Russ.
Amazon.
Yeah,
I
and
think
the
it's on
Outcast
Amazon.
Creative goes on to say 71 is such an outstanding movie. Watch it, Arr, if you
Mm.
have not seen it. I certainly will watch this film. It sounds quite terrifying, but I certainly will watch it. Um, yes. So guys, also please do watch that Joker, Joker, I guess, clip. If you haven't seen it yet, watch it. We'll talk again about it next week if you get a chance. And Mario Lopez, Russ is still waiting. If you have a chance, just let us know what you were thinking when you said you didn't care for the Joker scene. Bloodsport One says, "Arr, mm." Can you do a talk on shock films, B films, exploitation films? Yes, yes, and yes. Russ, will you be willing to join me for a talk
I
on
am totally down with some of that
that?
smut. Let me tell you, I love those movies. What was her name? Pam Grier, Margaret Markov, all of that stuff. Yeah, I was a big fan of The Arena, which was about Lady Gladiators, because I wrote a book about Lady Gladiators. So I watched The Arena, and there was actually a 2001 remake of that with a couple of Playboy centerfold models, and it was pretty good. And I was talking to one of them about it, and she was really annoyed that the way that the director uh, Timur Bekmambetov or something like that actually chose to shoot their fights. He did it with all these like sort of crazy camera angles and lots of swinging camera. And the two Playboy models that were in it said, we worked our asses off on these fight scenes, and it was so disappointing to see that it was all cut in this jittery way because they did a good job. So, but both, yeah. What else? Trying to think of some other exploitation classics.
I'm gonna get you, sucker.
Caged Heat.
Uh,
Is that Linda Blair?
yes, yes.
Um,
Coffee. Is it coffee or toffee?
yeah,
Anything
Cleopatra
with
Jones.
yes.
Yeah,
Blackula.
yes, Bloodsport, 100%. We're reeling them off here. Let's do that. Thank you, Outcast Creative, Jack O'Connell. Well done. Yeah, he was in Startup as well, I think, wasn't he? Yeah, that was the guy in 71. What else have we got here? Mario says, for me, it's too much Jokers. Film with a bad image. Look to me like Hannibal Lecter copy. Besides, what I want is more Jared Leto Joker. Well, you are not going to get any argument out of me on that side. You will notice chat and I have been through this entire stream without mentioning a certain director that I'm quite obsessed by, and I'm not going to. I'll try not to. But yeah, I think Mario, yeah, you're right. We sort of touched on this. There are too many Jokers. Yes, we do want to see Jared Leto, and yes, it was a Hannibal Lecter copy. But those are the sort of influences of that film, as we said, Zodiac, Seven, and now we can see the Silence of the Lambs stuff in there as well. So yeah, a good cut.
Absolutely.
But thank you
And
for
thank
sharing,
you,
mate.
Mario, for responding. We so appreciate it. Um, Dwayne Olson. Um, so good to see you, Dwayne, and
Hey, Dwayne.
welcome. Russ, for shame, exterminators, the rats and mouse of Nim can never forgive you.
Oh well, I'm sorry about that. But didn't the rats in the exterminator eat the guy's face off? I think I seem to remember that line. Yeah.
Yes, and that was the part that scared me the most. And you know something? It's off camera. You don't actually see the rats gnawing on this guy's face.
But you do
And
see Gino Pantavini going into the into the no spoilers, but Gino Pantavini, the famous meat mobster, does get his just desserts in that film. Yeah,
he
crazy.
does. And I think it's very funny that hearing the New York City cop, I love movies about cops and just like in general, no matter what country they're from. But hearing the New York City cop talk about how, yeah, it ate part of his, like hearing them just having to verbally say that was scared me to death as a kid. And you don't even see it. And I'm actually still very scared of of that scene.
Yeah, it's a brilliant movie. I've got a director's cut downstairs actually. I must dig it out of the shed and watch it again. I've got so many things I want to watch. Talking of which, I I am looking back fondly at something, and I want to see if this film deserves all the hate that it got. Because if I say Green Lantern movie, everybody goes, "Oh shit, 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 shit." I wonder if that's just not a knee-jerk reaction. Is it as bad as all that? Did it get a bad rap? Is it a great movie? Probably not. But is it the worst movie ever made, as we seem to think? Because I only saw it once when it first came out, and I remember not hating it at the time. And I thought, you know what? With all this talk about Ryan Reynolds returning to his role should certain things occur within Warner Brothers, um, I want to give it a rewatch. So I ordered the extended cut off Amazon the other day. So that's really what I want to spend my evening doing this evening.
Ah, and it certainly will be an enjoyable one. Rogue Thinker says, the more of this Batman I see, the less interest I have for it. Only my opinion, though. Glad others enjoy it. Well, thank you for sharing that, Rogue Thinker. As we
Mm.
said, we certainly do welcome differing opinions here, and we don't like an echo chamber in this place.
Yeah, man, check
Um,
it out when it comes out on streaming. Then it's kind of it's worth a watch. I'll give it that. There is a current superior Batman, of course, but it's definitely worth a watch. Yeah, I mentioned this Outcast. Yeah, Jack O'Connor. He was in Startup, which is another brilliant film, British film set in the Nick in the prison here. That was a really good one as well.
Now, Bloodsport, you're you just like, it's like music to my ears. He says, I was raised on exploitation films, VHS tapes every day after school, 80s, early 90s. Yes, those were the days, Bloodsport. One.
Absolutely, man. There was some crackers. I was just thinking Streets of Rage with Linda Blair. That's it. Is it Streets? Yeah, Streets of Rage. Yeah, that was awesome.
And he has down coffee. I think I was trying to say it, but I couldn't
Mm.
pronounce it right. Coffee, and I'm assuming that's with I can't remember the woman's name, but she's Angela Davis, I guess maybe, or one of those well-known actresses. Satan's
No,
cheerleaders.
no, we've kicked the anthill of the exploitation fans now. They're all coming. They're all coming streaming out with their seedy little favourites, myself included.
And Mikey Lito says, I wonder what our thinks of looking for Mr. Goodbar. Or do we need to ask, which is my mother? I will, you know what? I'm going to ask her what she thinks of the film. Certainly get back to you about that, Mikey Lito. Um, and so, oh, well, Lug Nuts 6. Hello, Lugnut 6. Thank you so much for stopping by. That is so kind of you to stop in. Always a pleasure to see you. You look like a red ruby of love today. Thank you so much, Lugnut6. I so appreciate you stopping by. We so do enjoy having you here with us today. And thank you for your kind words. We so appreciate that. The Outcast Creative is also chiming in. Hell comes to Frogtown.
Awesome.
And also Maniac Cop. I love just the title of that one.
Yeah, Maniac Cop was awesome, and I forget the name of the guy. He had the sort of he was in Tango and Cash. Robert something or another. He had this huge chin. He was like Desperate Dan, and he was Maniac Cop, and you saw him again in Tango and Cash, which is a great film.
Mm-hmm. And Rogue Thinker goes on to elaborate about his comments. I didn't think Batman was like a first year FBI agent that needed to help, that needed someone to help him investigate. Sounds like he is a detective, just a bad one. Yeah, maybe he is actually not as good of a detective yet. This is, you kind of are making a good point, Rogue
Yeah,
Thinker.
100%,
Um,
mate.
So we do appreciate that. Darth Plato says Action Jackson is a cop movie. I loved Action Jackson. I loved I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. These are not ones from the 70s, but I loved all of those.
Everybody
Tom
loves
Jr.
Cole.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom Jr. Jackson says I prefer the extended edition of Green Lantern.
Yeah, I'm hoping it comes with the commentary on the disc. I haven't. I still in its Amazon box actually because I've been busy. I'm under a deadline. I'm trying to rewrite an entire screenplay, and I've got 7, about 5 days to finish it. So yeah, maybe I'll do that tonight and not watch.
And Michaelito says, I enjoyed the Green Hornet, but that was because I was into the actor who played Kato. Well, that's okay. It's okay to enjoy a
But
film because you're
you're
into
talking
an
about
actor.
60s Green Hornet or the
Maybe.
remake
I don't know. But
because
guys,
60s Green Hornet was Bruce Lee.
I absolutely do want to mention everybody that on this channel and going forward with whatever panels that we're on, we totally support. If you are into a film because you like the actor, it is totally fine to do that. I think that honestly, that's why Robert Pattinson, as I said, is the first heartthrob to play the Batman, will be such a popular Batman, especially with the female gaze or anyone who likes men. He's going to be a hit for this just by his charismatic abilities of acting alone. So just keep that in mind. It does make a difference in casting when you cast someone like Robert Pattinson, for sure, at least in my case. So I'm right there with you, Mikey Lito. If I like the actor, sometimes I can be into something because I like that actor. Tom Jr. Jackson says Carl Weathers in Vanity. Yes, I love Vanity. I think she always plays she's just amazing. She's an
Well, I
amazing
love Carl
actress.
Weathers. He's my favorite. I love Carl Weathers. Ever since I saw him as Apollo Creed, I thought he was brilliant, and he completely owned Predator and Action Jackson. Action Jackson should have been more successful than it actually was. Don't think it was marketed right. It wasn't as pushed hard as it could have been. That should have been a franchise, because he's I was so glad that he's back in The Mandalorian. You know, I know he's had a successful career as a character actor. I get that, but I love to see Carl Weathers back being an iconic character again. Because Apollo Creed, I was watching Stallone in the making of Rocky Four, the director's cut during the pandemic, and he said that his biggest regret was killing off Carl Weathers' Apollo Creed. We love you, Carl. If you're watching, we love you, man.
We so love you, Carl Weathers. You are such an icon. And I do have to say that it was very satisfying seeing you alongside Rocky in a lot of the training sequences. You had such a beautiful physique. I think you were the epitome of fitness, a beautiful black man that anybody would fall in love with. Truly somebody I cherish when I think about a strong black man. I do think of Carl Weathers, and
Mm.
he still has that presence and strength in him, even at his age
God, he's
now.
so handsome, isn't he? I mean, even today, you know, and he's in his 70s
Mhm.
now, and he's just such a good looking dude. I mean, that's why that's one of the reasons why Stallone, he said he walked in and Carl Weathers was lying his ass off. They said, can you box? Oh yeah, I can box. And Carl Weathers admitted later, he said if they asked me, if I could jump out of an aeroplane without a parachute, I would have told them I could have done it to get this role. And yeah, he's a beautiful looking man for sure.
He really is. Those training sequences, especially where they're running on the beach, and I guess, Stallone and he synchronized their running so
Hmm.
that it would look like they're both, and it just was like really, honestly, very artsy almost. Some of the training sequences where they're running on the beach and you kind of see their legs extended at the same time, and they're kind of running in this unison.
Mm.
And I was like, this is a beautiful scene. Like this is,
Yeah, it
you
gets
know,
accused these days now of being homoerotic and all that kind of thing. And I often think about a lot of these scenes from 80s movies get now cast as being, more gay than Gay Jack McGay, winner of last year's Mr. Gay competition. But I don't think they were meant to be at the time. You can sort of look at them now and say, oh my goodness, they are homo, and indeed they are. I don't think they were at the time. But I am often reminded of the scene from Top Gun where they're playing, um,
volleyball.
volleyball, and they've got that song, "And I'm playing with them," and all that sort of thing. But I
And they
don't
have the
think that.
shirts off.
Yeah, exactly. They have their shirts off, and then you've got Apollo Creed and Rocky running and cuddling each other in the surf and all that. And it's just because they're bros, but they're bros. That's what it was. But yeah, no, great scene, love it.
Ah, whew. Ah. So the Outcast. Oh, and Lugnuts 6, Lugnuts, we love you. Also mentions Blackula, which is also one of my favorites as well. I thought Blackula had the cool factor that a lot of other films tried to capture. There was something cool about that film, and it's just maybe something elemental about featuring, let's say, the Black experience in this glamorized fantasy of being a vampire, but it had this cool element to it for a film that was made in the 1970s. And when you look at it, you're like, wow, this is very intriguing, and it kind of captures your attention in a way that I was not expecting Blackula to capture my attention, and I feel like it does. So the
I don't
formula.
remember it. I think I only saw it once on video back in the 80s or something like that.
Well, it's certainly something to check out, guys, if you're a fan of black exploitation. The Outcast Creative says, I worked in a video store, as so many of us have, right? And took home 4 to 5 tapes most weekends. I made a point of watching all the Italian ripoff movies: Bronx Warriors 1 and 2, Wheels of Fire, all those crazy good films, the
See
Outcast
now,
Creative.
thing about those Bronx Warriors, what was his name? Was it Slag or Scab or something like that? The main guy. But the thing about those movies, all of those knockoff movies, they had the best covers. I remember walking around the video shop because all of those, the only thing those films had to recommend, and were in some cases were the covers, because some of them were just so bad. And I remember Bronx Warriors 2 being particularly ignominiously shit. But yeah, the cover's really, really solid. You remember walking around, they had that plasticky smell. And this is even before Blockbusters. We had like a local one, before Blockbusters hit the UK. And I remember walking around there getting all these kind of films because, of course, the guy behind the counter didn't give a shit if you were too young. He would just go, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. I agree with all of that as well. And I'm just trying to get back to where I was. Wow, I'm kind of behind here. Um, let's see. Yes, we did see that one. And Bloodsport says, I remember Apollonia. Yes, we all remember Apollonia. You couldn't forget that woman for sure, as well as Vanity, and who I sometimes we get them mixed up, but they're two different people. And you made a good point earlier. Dwayne Olson is adding to what you said, Ross. Didn't Bruce Lee play Kato?
100%. Yeah.
Hmm. And he was another actor who was just remarkable at that time. And we haven't even begun to speak about Bruce Lee.
Don't
Um,
start me. Don't.
yeah,
You will regret it. Let's move on. Yes, Killing Creed was extreme. And Stallone admitted Darth Plato, if I don't know if you've seen his documentary, but those of you that haven't, he basically admits to being a bit of a dick in the 80s. Like he doesn't come out and say it, but he basically talks about how arrogant he was, how he was on top of the world, and how he was making all these decisions, and how he would never, as an older man. And I kind of look back at myself as a young guy and all the dumb things that I've done, and you wish that you knew then what you know now. And he certainly said, I just made the decisions, and it seemed like the right thing to do at the time. And it's the 80s; it was bombastic, but he regrets it as an artistic choice.
hmm. And Six Scale Cantina says, glad Carl Weathers is also directing some episodes of The Mandalorian, which is very true. He's a director. And of course, we're waiting for this Grief Karga 1/6 scale figure, which they
Mm.
have not come out with. And, we're all kind of waiting for that. Hopefully, soon they will definitely come out with that. Darth Plato says, Carl played Creed as an approximate Cassius Clay. And of course,
Yeah,
guys,
of course he
Cassius
did.
Clay is Muhammad Ali before he changed his name to Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, again, for basically Stallone based he was down on his luck. He had no money, and he went to see a fight with a guy called Chuck Wepner. Chuck Wepner was a bum fighter from nowhere and was supposed to fall over in the first round. Didn't. Went the distance with Ali, knocked him over, and Stallone came away and thought, "Fuck, that would make a great movie," and went home, blacked out his bedroom windows, and wrote the screenplay for Rocky in 3 days. So yeah, he is not. Yeah, it's not even a secret. He's a direct. Apollo Creed is a Muhammad Ali character, 100%.
Yes, and the Outcast creatives say, LOL, Top Gun locker room scene is even more obvious, probably. I know I couldn't take my eyes off of those gentlemen. And Six Scale Cantina says, I've been coaching for over 30 years, and I have professional MMA fighters I currently train. I use so much from Rocky and Apollo Creed's characters, so much legit stuff in those films.
Well, Six Gal Cantina, I'm actually working on a screenplay at the moment about an MMA fighter. It's like a homage to the 80s, where she ends up getting double crossed by the Chinese mafia and ends up in having to fight for her life in an underground street fighting arena, because that's what happens in the 1980s and now in the 21st century as well, if I have anything to do with it. And just for you personally, I don't know if anybody else has heard of this person. We actually signed up Paige Van Zant to be the lead character in that. So this will be her first acting role. We finalize the finance, which I believe will be happening in the next couple of weeks or months. But yeah, Paige is on board. So there you go. Watch it if it comes out.
Absolutely. Darth Plato says, when I saw Creed die in the theater, I actually wondered if a future would bring Creed back like what happened to Spock. Oh, okay. And Mark O'Brien mentions Eye of the Tiger, Mr. T, and Apollo training rock up.
You know what, Mark? You know what? My favorite bit of training music. Obviously, Rocky Four wins on the music, even though it was so weird hearing not Bill Conti at the time. But if we're going to go back to Rocky Three, My favorite bit in that is actually when Rocky's training for the first fight and his brother's singing that song called Pushing, which I just think that song, every time I hear that song, it just makes me laugh. It's so 80s jazzy, and it's actually got unironically a bit when they're going, whoo, ah, it's just so awesome. Like, and I actually put it on in the gym sometimes to my unpurgeable shame. I should not be admitting that. But yeah, no, Pushing. If you haven't heard it, Google it. It's beyond, it is a slice of 80s right there.
And hello, Chips Bewick. So good to see you today. Greetings. Were we talking about the Almighty Prince? I don't believe we were, but if you have Prince on the mind, certainly he captured a lot of the music of the 80s that we associate with it, with his soundtracks. And we were talking about Vanity, or is it Vanity was in Prince's films, right? Or is it Apollonia?
I
Do
don't
you
know.
remember?
I'm not. I hate to say this, guys, but I am. Not, I never liked Prince at all. It
Okay.
just didn't. He never landed with me. Like people. I remember my friend Sharon. She loved him and she loved Terence Trent D'Arby. But
Yeah, I like
Prince
Terrence
just.
Trent D'Arby. He was good
Yeah,
too.
well, he was a bit of a two-hit wonder, wasn't he? But those two hits were bloody awesome.
Yes, Wishing Well was one of them, and I don't remember the other one.
Sign your name across my
Oh
heart.
yes, I Want You to Be My Baby. I
Yeah.
thought it was going to be If You Let Me Stay.
Oh yeah,
You
no,
know,
that was another one. I
If You
lie.
Let
I'm
Me
not giving Terence his. Now we've got to go listen to Bill Conti. Sorry, Frank Stallone's Pushing and Terence Trent D'Arby's greatest hits. There we go.
Absolutely. Bloodsport one says, Aries, I didn't know you were a martial arts instructor. Great. And of course, he's talking about Aries Tarrington, who we saw earlier on the show, referring to his from Six Scale Cantina. So, guys, do subscribe to Six Scale Cantina, Aries Tarrington show, the
I kind of
market
feel like
show.
I'm missing out, Arum. I'm just not into. I'm not into toys at all. I shouldn't be calling them toys. I'm not into figures at all. And I kind of feel like I was. I watched your show. Midnight Metal with Rob and Lael, and you guys talk about these figures, and they're beautiful works of art with such love, and people are so into it. And again, it's kind of like Prince. I saw an advert the other day, actually, chat, and I sent it to our because they were doing huge discounts on these 1/6 scale figures. Um, so I hope you got your Henry Cavill or your Wonder Woman or whatever it was from there. But yeah, doesn't grab me, and I feel like I'm missing out. I feel so bad. Sorry, guys.
No, don't feel bad. I mean, I've been collecting, if you want to call them dolls, you can. I've been collecting dolls since I was maybe one or two. So, I've had a huge passion for that. I wanted my brother's GI Joes, but I didn't get those. But I wanted a female version of the GI Joe, and Barbie didn't really cut it, did she? But
No,
she
she did
didn't
not.
look like Joe, and Joe could do anything. Like he was, jumping out of airplanes and riding on motorcycles, and Barbie couldn't do any of that stuff.
He
Although
was
she
called
did have
Action Man in the
right
UK, and he had a
action
scar
men.
and gripping hands. And I remember the
Real
hands used to
hair.
be
They
made
had
of
real
rubber.
hair.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Realistic hair, eagle eyes, but the hands were made of rubber, and the finger would eventually fall off. But then they made them with really super hard plastic, and it was great after that.
And you could put parachutes on them and they could float down. And my brother would do that from the second floor in our house because we had like this banister that you could look over, and
Mm.
they would just come flying down like.
Yeah, the orange parachute, right?
I'm like, man, my Barbie can't do that. Although one of my dolls, you could put a bikini on her, and I could put her in the window, and she would tan. So,
Hmm. Oh, well, that's awesome, and
I
it should be
know,
said
right? Isn't it
should be
great?
said as well in today's society. If you want to put a bikini on Action Man, that's your prerogative, and you should certainly do that because Action Man had welded on blue underpants. I seem to remember with a belt.
And Darth Plato says, I didn't get Prince either. Okay, so I certainly do understand that, Darth Plato. Chips Buick says, yeah, I saw Vanity and Apollonia and got excited. We're excited too. We're very excited to talk about Vanity and Apollonia, but maybe we'll capture that in another broadcast for sure. Uh, and Bloodsport one says, remember the family scream of passion? Yes. And Just a Brown Girl says,
Yeah,
yes,
I saw that. That's what I was laughing at when you you were
if
talking.
you
I
let
just
me
saw a pop up.
stay.
Boom! If you let me stay, yeah.
I love that song. Six Scale Cantina, Aries Tarrington says, Russ, I've got two female fighters in Invicta FC. What did you think, or did you see yet Halle Berry's Bruised? We met Halle Berry at one of the fights we were participating in. Oh, such a good question.
Yeah, it was. I really, really enjoyed that movie. Actually, um, can I talk spoilers? Or it's been out for a
Yes.
while. Okay, yeah, I, I thought that the romance relationship seemed a bit tacked on. Actually, it's almost like, oh well, we better have this. Almost like that line in the Batman. It almost seemed like it was something that they just had to put in there. Um, yeah, I thought it was really good. And now Six Girl is going to get, what's her name? Bullet Valentia. That I thought she was absolutely awesome in it, and I'm glad that they didn't portray her as the archetypal bad guy. She was just an athlete, and when I write myself, actually, I always try not to make the bad guy a bad guy. I always like to think of them as antagonists. I thought that the whole story was really good. It's a familiar story, right? The washed up fighter, one last shot, and the whole idea of that little, of her son and all that sort of thing, just turning up. Yeah, it was really, really, really enjoyed the film, and not a bad directorial effort by Halle Berry as well. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it, and congratulations on having two girls in Invicta. I do know a female MMA fighter called Lenny White. Actually, she was laid off for a long time. She's just returning back now, so hopefully she'll get back in the octagon soon and start kicking some ass.
Excellent. Wow, that is fantastic. And I have to say, I am envious of you, Aries, for meeting Halle Berry. That must have been quite an experience.
Mm.
It's wonderful to hear more about you, Aries Tarrington, guys from Six Scale Cantina. Do definitely check out Six Scale Cantina on YouTube. Um, the lovely Sherry is here. Hello, the lovely Sherry. Good morning to you. Always so glad to have you here with us. And oh, okay. Um, Bloodsport is asking, mm, have you ever had Lady J and Scarlet from GI Joe? No, I have. I mean, I know who they are, but no, I never got them. I wanted the figures. I actually wanted the whole line, but I never got any of those figures. And the Outcast Creative says that Halle Berry was amazing
She was. Well, she's
in that
amazing, full stop,
film.
isn't she? I'm wondering
Absolutely.
if Catwoman was as bad as everybody says, because I remember watching it about 10 years ago and I quite enjoyed it. So,
Well, I think it was that she needed a better script. She looked lovely in
mhm,
Catwoman, and I thought that she had a certain
stop.
gracefulness
Mm.
in the way that she portrayed the character. She just kind of, I don't even know. It was just she was almost like a ballet in the way that she portrayed the
She was
character.
very feline. She nailed it. She nailed it. I
Yeah.
liked it.
And I thought that that was something that was very unique to Hallie that no one
Mm.
else has really brought to that character. I would say I tie her with my favorite, which was Eartha Kitt, because Eartha Kitt she seemed like she just was going to make trouble for the Batman. She's like, I'm going to make trouble for the Batman. And I'm like, yeah,
Mm.
she is. She's going to fuck him up. Like, she's
I,
going to like, and I just liked that approach that she had.
she was
Eartha
awesome, but
Kitt.
come on now. Michelle Pfeiffer, come on now. She
Now,
was
Michelle
brilliant.
Pfeiffer was incredibly sexy, and I think she brought a certain level of sex appeal that I've never seen
And insanity.
since.
And
Yes, to a
insanity.
character. I think Michelle Pfeiffer, is probably, of course, her work's prolific in the 80s and 90s, but I think that she changed the character to, maybe the ultimate seduction version uh, of
Yeah.
the character that we just haven't seen that level of seductiveness before. I thought that was very interesting that she was able to do that in what seemed to be an effortless performance. So she definitely deserves kudos there. Thank you, Chips Buick, for pointing out that Lady J and Scarlet action figures were very hard to find. Now, we are approaching the 2 hour mark, Russ. This has been such an incredible discussion. Before we go, Russ, is there anything else you want to mention or talk about before we close out today's Sunday Brunch Live?
Just a shout out, Six Girl corrects me, Valentino Shevchenko. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, her name blanked on me. I'm sorry about that. Um, No, not that I can think of. I will report back next week on having watched Green Lantern. Oh, I want to big up The Last Kingdom. Um, People in the chat, if you have not seen The Last Kingdom, please check it out. It is a fine example of a series that has a beginning, middle, and an end, and they are going to wrap it all up now. They finished the fifth season, and they're going to have a movie to finish the whole thing off, and that is it. That's the end of The Last Kingdom. It is. I know I'm going to get dragged out and shot for this, but I think it is far superior to Vikings. It is such a brilliant show. Watch it, read the books, you'll love it. And I am pleased that I managed. Oh, one more thing. Pamela Anderson, Broadway, Chicago. Yes, Pammy, go for it. You're still number one. And
Absolutely.
amazed I got through an entire stream without mentioning a certain movie and someone and movement that's happening. So well done, Russ. Pat myself on the back. Thank you, chat. It's so good to see so many new and old faces. I'm thrilled to see just a brown girl here. Bloodsport, positive fandom. We are positive fandom. Outcast Creators, Mario, everybody. Thank you so much for continuing to support this. It really means everything. So yes, thank you so much.
Absolutely. And Bloodsport One, thank you for saying EDM. You do know that I love EDM. Thank you so much for that. And on behalf of Tom Jr. Jackson, who is our fantastic moderator and collaborator, he says, thank you for joining us. And I do just want to reiterate what Russ said earlier, guys. When you come onto Positive Fandom's Sunday Brunch show live, please do feel free to let us know what's going on for you guys who are creators out there. Go ahead and let us know so that we can talk about that stuff on the air, promote what's going on in the community. We certainly do want to continue that momentum, letting everybody be aware of what, you know, all of everybody in the community and the creators are up to. And we so appreciate having you on, Russ, as always. You are a fantastic host here on the show.
Thank you so much.
And on behalf of, you know, myself, Art, and Positive Fandom, I do want to thank everybody for coming out. And as you go throughout your days, and wherever you are on Earth and in the galaxy, always do remember, everybody, to please be kind. Take care, everybody.
See you later, guys. Thanks so much.